A fake HOA cop showed up to confiscate Tom Rollins's generator, unaware it powered the county's police repeater. With a phony badge and a smug attitude, Brad thought no one would question his made-up authority. But Tom had one quiet call to make, and it brought the full weight of law down on the imposter's head. And just wait until you hear how this quiet man's calm response turned the whole scheme upside down. Tom Rollins liked things simple. His days were quiet, spent tending his vegetable beds, tinkering with his ham radio equipment, and sipping strong coffee under the rustling canopy of pines that bordered his Georgia property. 5 acres of woods, 1 aging pickup, and a reliable diesel generator tucked behind the garage. That was all he needed. The generator wasn't just for hurricanes or outages. It was the nerve center for a high-band emergency repeater that Tom had volunteered to host years ago when he retired from emergency communications work. Most folks didn't even know what it did. Even fewer knew it connected directly to the county police network, and Tom preferred it that way. So when a white Ford Explorer crept up his gravel drive that sticky Thursday morning, tires crunching slow like it was stalking something, Tom glanced up from his toolbox, brow furrowed. The SUV looked official at first glance, flashing amber light, magnetic HOA Compliance Division decal, and a clipboard propped on the dash. But Woodland Acres didn't have an HOA. It never had. That was half the reason Tom had bought here in the first place. The door swung open, and a man stepped out. Heavy-set, sunburned neck, mirrored sunglasses, and a blue polo stretched tight over his gut. He walked like he owned the place, fast, stomping straight toward the side yard with zero hesitation. No knock, no greeting. Tom stood slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. "Can I help you with something?" The man raised a laminated badge clipped to his shirt. It looked real enough, at a glance. But something about it felt off, too shiny, wrong font. "That generator," the man snapped, jerking a thumb over his shoulder. "It's in violation of HOA noise and visibility codes. Ordinance 12B. Tom blinked. "We don't have an HOA." The man's lips curled into a smirk. "We do now. Your parcel falls under the newly expanded Woodland Estates Cooperative. I'm here to enforce compliance." Before Tom could reply, the man walked straight past him, into the yard. No permission asked, just bold steps on someone else's soil, like he'd done it 100 times before. Tom's pulse kicked up. The generator thrummed behind the garage wall, steady as always. But now, the sound wasn't just background. It was a target. "I'm giving you 10 minutes to shut it down," the man called over his shoulder, "or I'll have to seize it myself." Tom narrowed his eyes. His voice was calm, but low. "You touch that generator, and you're going to have a whole lot more to worry about than a code violation." The man stopped, turned. "You threatening a compliance officer?" "No," Tom said quietly. "I'm warning someone who's trespassing." The man didn't flinch. He just looked Tom up and down, like he was sizing him for a fight, then turned back toward the generator. And that's when Tom knew. This wasn't some overzealous volunteer. This was something worse. Someone pretending to have power, walking around like he could take whatever he wanted. And if he laid a hand on that generator, he'd be flipping a switch he didn't understand. The man called himself Brad. No last name, no agency, just Brad from the New Woodland Estates HOA. He said it like it was fact, like it had always existed, claimed there'd been a merger between their quiet little road and a development a few miles east, one with gated driveways and glossy street signs. Tom didn't buy it for a second. The next morning, he drove straight to the county clerk's office. A quick search through the land use filings confirmed what he already knew. No HOA had jurisdiction over his land. His subdivision had been officially exempt since its founding. No amendments, no transfers, no filings. Just a man named Brad with a homemade badge and a clipboard full of lies. But Brad wasn't working alone. That afternoon, a neon orange envelope was taped to Tom's shed door. Compliance violation, generator visibility, and noise. $250, fine. By dusk, another showed up, this time on his mailbox. Second violation. Unauthorized equipment on residential property. $500 fine. Then one right on the generator itself. fluttering in the humid breeze. Final notice. Removal ordered within 24 hours. Each one was stamped with an official-looking seal, complete with an HOA logo no one had ever seen before. The legal jargon was clumsy. The citations referenced sections that didn't exist. But it didn't matter, because most folks wouldn't question it, and that's what made it dangerous. The next day, the damage spread. Tom's neighbor, Miss Connie, a widow in her 80s who spent her mornings pruning hydrangeas, woke to find her backyard fence half dismantled. No warning, no paperwork, just a note shoved under her door. Non-conforming structure removed under new HOA safety policy. Down the road, a young couple, Rachel and Jamal, came home from work to find their patio furniture gone. Hauled off. Their only crime? The cushions were the wrong shade of blue. Tom had spent a career navigating federal regulations, comms protocols, and emergency systems. He'd worked in war zones and weather disasters, but nothing made his jaw tighten like watching a liar walk unchecked through good people's lives. So, when Brad showed up again, this time in broad daylight with a flatbed truck idling behind him and two men in safety vests climbing out like they were city workers. Tom didn't say a word at first. He stood on his porch, arms crossed, watching. Brad strutted up the drive like he owned it. "We gave you notice," he said, motioning toward the generator. "You didn't comply, so now we're taking custody of the equipment." Tom didn't raise his voice, didn't move a muscle, just looked him dead in the eyes and spoke with a weight that settled like stone. "You lay one hand on that machine," he said, voice rough from years of quiet authority, "and you're interfering with federal communications infrastructure." Brad scoffed. "I don't see a sign." Tom didn't respond. He turned, walked back inside his house, and picked up the phone. One number. No hesitation. He didn't slam the door. He didn't shout. He just made the call. And then he waited, calmly, knowing exactly what kind of storm was about to roll in. 17 minutes. That's how long it took. Tom stood by his front window, arms folded, gaze fixed on the driveway. Brad was pacing now, impatient. The two men in vests had backed the flatbed closer, one of them tugging on a ratchet strap. None of them noticed the distant hum building in the air. Then came the sound of tires on gravel, fast. 3 blacked-out county SUVs roared around the bend like they were chasing a fugitive. A fourth vehicle, this one marked with the sheriff's seal, slid in right behind. And at the end of the convoy, a white utility van rolled to a stop, its rooftop antenna mast already blinking. Brad turned in confusion, then panic. He didn't make it 2 steps before the deputies were on him, hands behind his back. No resistance, just stunned silence as the mirrored sunglasses were pulled from his face and the fake badge removed from his belt. The sheriff's deputy flipped it over and muttered, "Hardware store," before handing it off to a crime scene tech. The 2 contractors? Frozen. The moment they heard the words felony impersonation, fraudulent seizure of private property, and interference with protected emergency infrastructure, the color drained from their faces. They raised their hands, backed away. One of them kept whispering, "I thought this was real." The generator sat quietly behind the garage, still humming, still legal, now wrapped in bold yellow police tape labeled "Do Not Tamper, Law Enforcement Infrastructure." Deputies moved quickly, body cams rolling. Brad's truck was impounded, along with the flatbed. His clipboard was bagged as evidence. Inside the cab, dozens of printed violation notices, each with the same fake HOA letterhead and phony ordinance numbers. It was a full-blown operation. And as the sheriff's investigation dug deeper, the story unraveled like a knot under pressure. Brad wasn't just a fraud. He was a known name in a different zip code, a former HOA board member from a development 10 miles away. 3 years earlier, he'd been removed in disgrace after a full audit revealed he'd been siphoning HOA funds into fake maintenance contracts. A civil suit had been filed, but he vanished before it made it to trial. Now, he'd resurfaced, with fake decals, forged legal documents, and a blueprint to seize control of an unsuspecting neighborhood. His plan? Start with bold, visible targets like Tom. Pretend legitimacy. Use fear. then expand, street by street, until no one had the energy or knowledge to fight back. And he nearly pulled it off. He even had a mock website queued up, complete with a compliance jail tab, a digital payment portal for fines, and a section labeled Community Leadership Opportunities, which, ironically, only listed his own name. But Tom's call had landed like a hammer, and now Brad was sitting in the back of a cruiser, windows rolled up, wrists bound, face slack with the realization that the entire scam had detonated before it even began. Justice wasn't done yet, but it had just kicked the door in. By the end of the week, Brad's name was on every local news station and more than a few national blogs. His mugshot, red-faced, eyes half shut, was plastered beneath headlines like, "Fake HOA cop busted for radio interference scheme. Man tried to seize generator, didn't know it. Powered police comms." Reporters called it brazen. The sheriff called it one of the strangest cases of impersonation and infrastructure tampering we've ever handled. And Tom? He said nothing to the cameras. He didn't need to. The official statement from the county sheriff's department made things crystal clear. Tom Rollins's generator was not only legal, it was a designated emergency asset under Georgia's Mutual Aid Emergency Communications Framework. Any attempt to damage or remove it was a federal-level offense. It turned out Brad was facing more than just impersonation. There were counts for attempted theft of protected infrastructure, public endangerment, and multiple violations of communication security law. 5 felony charges total, no bail. But it wasn't the courtroom that gave Tom peace. It was the sound of county engineers pulling up to his gate early Friday morning. No big announcement, no ceremony, just 2 workers in clean uniforms, a drill, and a stainless steel plaque they bolted to the front fence. Emergency communication, node, do not tamper, federal penalty. That was it. No need for speeches, no need for revenge. That little sign spoke louder than anything Brad had ever said. By the weekend, the neighborhood felt different. Miss Connie left a handwritten card in Tom's mailbox. The young couple, Rachel and Jamal, brought over fresh lemonade and quietly mowed his lawn without being asked. Others just waved more often. Nods that meant, "We saw what you did. Thank you." Tom didn't gloat, didn't post anything online. He just sat on his porch, like always. Boots crossed at the ankle, coffee cooling in one hand, watching the sun drift through the treetops. Behind the garage, the generator purred like it always had. But now that hum carried a weight. It wasn't just power anymore. It was protection. Not just for him, but for the officers who relied on the signal, for the neighbors who finally felt safe again, and for the truth that didn't need to shout to be heard. Tom knew something now, something Brad never understood. Sometimes the strongest force in the world isn't noise or fear or even control. Sometimes it's quiet, reliable, and absolutely untouchable.